John, thanks for your time. Let's start with Deneve Bounforth joining Catalan's Dragons on loan. What's the thinking behind that from your perspective?
Just to get him some football at a good level. So it's opportunity arose over there. Was getting limited game time here, so it's perfect for us really. Good for Deneve and Catalans.
Beyond game time, obviously it's quite a difficult environment to go into there at the moment. What else do you want him to get out of that?
No, that's it. Just to go and play against men at a good level. So it's hard to get opportunities for them. I've said this every week. I think in this conference that outside first team here, that's hard to get game reserve grade football. It just doesn't happen. So it's strictly about going over there and getting time against men.
And is that the reason why it's a loan until the end of the season rather than a 2-week one?
Yeah, it's the same as everyone else has gone on loan. Yeah.
Looking at your team news rather than going through the list of players on the treatment table, any positive or negative fresh news on that front?
No, pretty much. We don't have to name the team for a couple of days, but it'll be pretty much the same as what took the field against Salford.
Mm-hmm. Are you anticipating having to make any changes at all, or would you like to keep it?
Like I said, we just have to wait and see. It's a short turnaround. If everyone's fit and well, it'll be similar to the team that took on Salford.
You gave Jack Charles his first appearance of the season. What's the plan for him now that he's got that under his belt this year?
Yeah, like I said, we'll be close to what we did against Salford. We don't have to make that call until later in the week. We'll train again on Friday, and then we'll finalise the team then.
He's had to go through a lot of hard times here at Hull FC, given last year and then the injuries. How pleased are you with the resiliency and the fortitude that he's shown so far?
Yeah, he's worked really hard. Everything you ask Jack to do, he does times two. And you like rewarding. It's a good message to send to the rest of the squad that if you work hard and you're patient, that your opportunity's not far around the corner.
What would you like him to work on? What do you want to see him take as a next step in his game?
No, it's hard to say. It's just just get his defence right, kick well, and find his spot in the side. It's he understands the game really well. It's not sort of just picking one thing that he needs to be better at. It's just what he's going to get better at is the more chances we can give him at this level.
Sam Essay's earning plenty of plaudits this year. What do you think's clicked for him at Hull FC so far?
He's comfortable in his environment. He has the confidence of his coaches and his players, and it's coming out in him. He's enjoying his time here. That's sort of an ongoing thing at the moment. I think we've stated that we'd love to keep him here, but it's probably out of our hands.
Is there any update on that at all in terms of no? What would you say perhaps to fans who are trying not to fall in love with a player who's only on loan at the moment?
No, it's just enjoy each week as it comes. He's like I said, he's loving his time. You can see in the way that he plays. Fans love him, and as I said, all coaches and players really enjoy him being here. But that one's just out of our hands.
While we're on the subject of recruitment and retention, John, in terms of still waiting for news on the quota spots, how much is that affecting yours and Richie's work at the moment, and perhaps holding you back from what you want to be doing?
Well, it's not perfect. We'd love it to have some clarity around it, but the more time you spend worrying about it, the less time you spend about this game this week. So it's we're on hold until we get a clear picture on what that is.
Mm-hmm. When are you anticipating?
I couldn't tell you, mate. I don't know.
Zach Hardacre spoke after the win at Salford, saying he believes on its day this team is a top 4 side in Super League. On paper for you, where do you think it perhaps should be on a consistent basis?
I honestly don't buy into that. Every team on their day with their best side playing at their best is capable, and we're no different to anyone else as far as that's concerned. But I don't buy into that, because next week could be a totally different week to this week. I say it's an answer you don't want to hear, but it's see who's available and fit this week, get them ready, and go out there and do our very best to get a job done on Warrington, and then at the end of that game we assess where we're at and we'll move into St Helens.
John, forgive me for paraphrasing, but I believe before the Castleford game you spoke about this team not being a side who can win when it's not playing well. What kind of step towards that was getting a victory at Salford when perhaps you weren't at your best?
I thought we played really well against Salford, to be honest with you. There was a lot of things that went against us early. There was a lot of tap downs and 6 to goes and a couple of penalties. We just had no ball and we were playing into a gale force wind, and I thought they handled that really well. Yeah, look, we're just not at a stage in our development where we can relax at all and not be, the biggest thing we did as opposed to the Cass game was we held onto the ball. We didn't make any errors, we didn't give them any free shots. We worked hard on getting the ball up the other end of the field, and we took advantage of our chances, which is sort of what Castleford did to us.
Getting to a point though, in general for a side, winning when you're not at your best, which can happen some weeks, where does that come from? Is it a mentality thing? How do you try and generate that within a group?
Just be consistent with everything you do, your messaging, how you train. And sometimes the opposition just play better than you. That's no one sort of really wants to hear that as an answer. But if you play a side that's really switched on the day and they click, they're hard to beat.
Where do you feel you're at the moment in terms of getting more consistency from your side?
Look, I've been pretty happy with the consistency. We've won more than we've lost. We've had to deal with a lot of injury along the way. So. We'd love to win every game we play, but that's not a reality, So I've been reasonably happy with our consistency. There's been the odd game where, for whatever reason, we haven't given ourselves opportunities and given the other side way too many opportunities, and you struggle to win, So it's just a week to week. I think players are starting to understand where we need to be good each week. So I've been not too concerned with that. I think we've won 4 of our last 5 or 3 of our last 4. So.
Mm-hmm. Going into the Warrington game, what do you want to see more of the same, and where do you want to see improvement?
Yeah, you just like to hang on to the ball 90% of the times that you get it. There's little boxes in our game that we like to tick every week, and if we get them done, that keeps us in the game, and then it's up to our halves to steer us around and get the job done.
Second meeting against Warrington this year, you mentioned it's 3 wins out of the last 4, but prior to that it was 4 straight defeats following on from the win at Warrington. How do you reflect upon the form since your win there?
I don't really look at what's happened in the past. It's trying to get better from the week before. There's been no glaring holes in the way we've played over a long period of time. There's been some games we just we weren't quite there. So. Just working on the Salford game, there's no major big areas where you can't get better in a week, in major areas. It's just trying to tinker with little things in the game. Trained today. I was really happy with the way things went.
What have you made of Warrington since then?
Look, they're excellent in the Challenge Cup. They're very unlucky not to probably win that game. And sometimes there's a little bit of a hangover on the back of that. Put so much effort in such a big game. There's probably a little bit of what's happening there, but there's too much class in their team for that to continue. Great halves, great kicking game, big strong forward pack. So we expect them to be near their best this week.
How do you see this game coming up being different to the one back in April?
Different. I couldn't tell you. We'll approach it the same way. So like what Warrington bring is a different story. I can't really answer that. But for us, it's just being consistent. It was one of our better performances of the year. Things went our way. We scored some nice tries off set pieces, which don't always happen. So it's just about being consistent with what we do, take advantage of our chances.
John, thanks for your time.
Cheers, mate.
Hey John, just one more question on recruitment please. Oliver Holmes retired a couple of weeks ago. Obviously there's a bit of cap space there. Is there any plans to fill that if the opportunity arises? Obviously there's a few weeks to go till the transfer deadline.
Not at the moment, mate, no. The cap space is not major, so there's not a lot on the horizon immediately.
Stuff. A good story. The Man of Steel's gone incognito now, but Aidan Steezer is right up there along with Herman SASA. I mean, does that surprise you, Aidan's form this year? Because leadership was something the club has been crying out for, and he's provided it by the bucket load.
Yeah, I think it's been a combination of a few things, but his leadership is certainly a big part of that. But having Zach Hardiker around him, Jordan Rapana, Cade Cuss, those types of things. It's all little things that have come into play. A few results have gone our way, and you generally, when you're winning games, your key playmakers earn the points for those types of awards. So, yeah, it's just those things take care of themselves if the team's doing a job. So I'm sure Aiden and Herman would be the first to pat all their teammates on the back for creating a platform for them.
I mean, Aiden's spoke in press quite regularly this year, saying he's found a real connection with his club and he's really enjoying himself. So does that also play a part in it?
Yeah, I think if you feel comfortable and you're happy in your environment, that's a major part of doing anything well. Whether football, work, whatever your chosen profession is. And he's happy. He's enjoying his time here. He loved playing the Super League. I think he had 4 years here previously. He's really enjoyed the football here. But he's found a home. He's probably never really been in the key leadership role that he's in here now. He's not. It's just sort of evolved into that position. He's a very forthright in how he thinks about his football. He's a voice amongst the group, and it's the group have really enjoying playing with him as well.
Does that mean he can get even better then? Because you say he's developing into a leadership role. Obviously, I know he's at the twilight of his career, but he's still got another 18 months here, so is there room to develop? Yeah,
it goes hand in hand. The team around him keeps improving. It'll make his job even, not easier, but it'll make his job a little bit more clearer. Can maybe take a little bit more back seat instead of, offering the amount of leadership and the playmaking that he does. It's just part of how the team evolves.
And Herman's right up there as well. You look at the stat sheet, I know the game's not played on stat sheet, but he's right up there every week. His meters, his carries, his impact. You watch him, it just looks like he's having the time of his life. Yeah,
he's a real handful. We don't have a lot of players like him that really destructive with the ball. We have guys that do their jobs and play with consistency, whereas Herman's just a player that you need. All teams, if you want to be successful, all teams need guys that can break tackles and create something out of nothing, and he's that for us.
Your opposite man, Sam Burgess, bit of a tough time for him at the minute. There's been calls within the Warrington circles that putting a bit of pressure on him as people are starting to turn him. I mean, you've been through the highs and lows in your career. What's your message to Sam? Because he's a big personality, and he's someone who's at the start of his coaching career, if you like.
Yeah, look, he's been through a lot. Sam as a player and as a coach, he's been did a lot of time with Wayne Bennett at South. He'll know it's just about being consistent. You coach long enough, you're going to have the highs and the lows, and sometimes we're a bit too quick to judge. 2 weeks ago he was a couple of minutes away from winning the Challenge Cup final against all the odds, so he'll know that what his team's capable of and what he needs to do to get him there.
I mean, I'm guessing there's no disillusions here. You're expecting a very tough game on Saturday.
Yeah, they're back at home. They don't want to let their fans down. Sam always took a lot of pride in his performance as a player, and he'd be no different as a coach. And I'm sure they'll galvanise through the week. Like I say, the hangover from the Challenge Cup's probably over for them now. There's a realisation that they probably need to start winning, and it'll start with our game on the weekend.
The reserves play this Friday night. Jack Rampton, obviously, is someone who trialled and he's been in training. I mean, what have you made with him? Because obviously his raw has come from Rugby Union, but he's got a chance to make his mark, I guess, with you guys. Yeah,
we just got to get him some football. I think we've only got 3 games left in the reserve grade, so we'll play here as much as he possibly can. But it'd be lovely to get him a gig on a weekly basis, just to see. He's got all the skills. It's just the game is new to him, so it's we can train him as much as we like. That'll help, but the real help will come when we can play him week to week basis at a decent level.
I mean, physically, all the attributes are there, aren't they? He's quick as anything, and he's got a for intercepts. So I suppose it's a good starting base to go off.
Yeah, he's got a basic knowledge of catch, pass, run, tackle, but it's just tying that into rugby league can sometimes be a bit difficult.
So obviously after reserves, Championship, League One, that could be potentially on the horizon.
I hope so. We're trying to get him as much of that as we can.
How's he settled in with the group? Obviously coming from a different part of the country.
No, he seems to settle in really well. He's only been here a couple of weeks. He's done a lot of travelling with his career with the Sevens. He's used to sort of being in different environments so he's very determined to make it. So that's a big bonus for him as well.
a chance against a good opposition in St Helens for young boys to, I suppose, keep knocking on your door and say, John, I'm trying, I'm playing as well as I can, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's why Jack was sort of promoted last week was, just his efforts at training and in the games. He's really taken on board to go back there and lead, and he's played really well. So anyone who keeps continually doing that, when there is an opportunity, that's where you look for those guys that are, working really hard.
It's a good example, Jack. Shows the rewards of attitude, application, everything.
Yeah, it is. He's, as I said, he's a great kid. Loves the club. He's very committed rugby league player. He really wants to make a career of it.
Cheers.
Hi John, you've seen it as a great opportunity and keen to loan a few players out just to gather some experience, none so than Eva, who you've mentioned earlier. You've got 3 currently at Hunslet, and it would go amiss of me not to ask you about Dean Muir. He's actually attended a training session today. What's the rationale behind that?
Dean asked to come along. Now there's a bit of a link with the club. We've got 3 boys there, 3 young boys. So it was just a matter. He just wanted to come along and hopefully pick something up or pass something on to us. But yeah, it's just we've got a relationship there now, so it was nice to meet the coach.
And is this something we've done with other clubs as well?
Pretty open to it. Yeah, if we've had a few, guys come in from different clubs who just want to spend a bit of time, around a professional environment, and hopefully, yeah, like I say, hopefully they can, we can help out where we can.
Thanks, John.
Cheers, mate.
Just want to ask you about Zach Hardacre. Obviously, he's been playing the back row for a lot of the season now. Can you see him making that move permanently?
It's never. I don't think anything's ever permanent in rugby league unless you're a front rower. It's hard to move them out of there. It's horses for courses. He's doing a great job in it for us in the back row. But he was doing a great job for us in the centres early in the year as well. So it'll be when everyone's available, what's best for the team, I suppose.
Yeah, just the fact that he's putting his hand up and he's willing to play there and play well as well. That's a massive boost for you, isn't it? Makes things easier for you.
Yeah, it's a great message for everyone in the playing roster that. That's how it should be too. You shouldn't limit yourself to playing left side of the field, right side of the field. If a coach asks you where you want to play and you say, I only want to play on the left in the back row, well, you really only got one opportunity to play. If you say, I'll play anywhere for you, coach, it opens up a lot of doors.
Yeah. With the Luke fixtures, this is the second time you've gone to Warrington this season, and yet I don't think you've played St Helens yet. Do you find that a bit strange, and would you like to see maybe a 14-team Super League and make it a bit more rounded?
Yeah. It doesn't really bother me, to be honest with you, because we can. It doesn't matter when we play them. It's generally not going to be the same team on the paddock. It's probably a bit confusing for the fans because where we all come from. But I don't see a 14-team competition the answer. I really don't. I think it's too many games, not enough players. Not too many games where we're just going to be playing in front of empty stadiums. I think the others, for me, I'm new to the block, new kid on the block, But for me, just looking on, I think a smaller competition, more players, more competitive games, and better pathways, I think, to go.
Just lastly, with the Ashes talk coming up at the end of the season, obviously, might be a bit too soon for the likes of Lewis Martin, Harvey Barron, David Litton, but in years to come, do you expect them to be pushing for international honours? Yeah,
look, they're very early in their development, especially Lewis and Harvey, who haven't played rugby league for a long period of time. So, biggest thing for those guys will be, just mentally being switched on the whole time. They're young boys and they're enjoying life and they're enjoying their football, and they are really willing to learn. So that they've got all that covered. Time in the jumper, time on the field, and really work hard on the mental side of the game. For any young player, but those 3 are here at Hull, and potential enormous. But it's just experience and time. I think is going to make them boys better.
Hi, John. It seems Tom Briscoe is on the verge of 100 tries for Hull FC. You've also got Lewis Martin, who, if he scores this week, it'll be the 8th game on a trot, which would put him in quite an exclusive club. How important is it to not think about those sort of things and say, oh, let's make sure we get Tom over for his 100th try, and let's not think like that as such?
I've never mentioned it, and the players maybe in their downtime, when they're in their private settings, but all I can say is it's never been mentioned once. I think that they know. From my perspective, it's nothing about who scores the tries. It's the process of getting there, and it's great to score tries, but it's the end product of everyone doing their job. So that's all we've really been focusing on. If we do that, the boys they'll tick those boxes.
And obviously, when you went and won at Warrington earlier in the year, you got off to a really fast, great start. Obviously, you were 26-4 up by half-time. How important was that start then? And is it a case of you look for something very similar this time around, considering, with their confidence must be shot to bits by now, considering? Yeah,
we go into every game trying to start well. No one goes out there and purposefully makes mistakes. It was one of those games, and we've had a couple where we got early field position, we got early possession, we scored some really nice tries off set plays, which we started open up a little bit, I suppose, and it was that day in particular was one of those days at first half where everything just stuck for us. We were scoring tries off set pieces, off things that we spoke about at training, and that very rarely happens. So, what you've got to be able to do is when you do start fast and you get that type of field position and possession is don't get frustrated with it if it don't happen for you straight away. It's just continually don't lose your patience and trust that if you keep winning that field position battle, that we'll come up with the right play soon enough.
Would it be fair to say at the weekend at Salford that the side showed basically something of a ruthless streak? The fact that you scored 24 unanswered points in the second half, is that something that you've played towards, sort of thing? Is it that ruthless streak that you're looking for?
Yeah, we always talk about that. We've been quite good defensively, in the last month or so, or probably going back a little bit even further. So that's always something that we talk about is, limiting the opportunities that the opposition gets. I was really happy defensively. I think, we caught some kick returns, or we brought the ball back into the other half of the field, which is a really tough thing to do defensively. Like I said, no matter, Salford's had their challenges, but they were very spirited on the weekend, and I thought in the second half we really amped up defensively, pinned them in their own end. And with a bit of luck, I think we had 4 disallowed tries. We probably could have come up with a whole lot more. So that was the pleasing thing for me on the weekend, was just defensively it just kept turning up.
And again, I know I mentioned it in post-match on Sunday, but how pleased were you to see them deal with the hostility? Because it was a very hostile crowd, wasn't it? To deal with that sort of hostility. What does that say about the players that they've been able to deal with that?
Yeah, hopefully just switch off to the outside noise. It's even with the support you get. It's fantastic that the support we do get, but you've got to realise that they're not going to make the tackles for us, and they're not going to make the carries for us. They're not going to chase the kicks for us. So at the end of the day, that's when you really appreciate the support from your own fans, and they keep turning up in spades for us.
And of course, they'll obviously make a difference again, because you'll be expecting a big travelling support again on Saturday, I would assume. Yeah,
it's a good time. I think it's a 5 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday, so it's a great time for families. And they've been travelling. I think we had 12 or 1,500 there on the weekend, and probably would expect even more on Saturday with a time-friendly game time.
Okay, John, thanks very much.